to provide, feeling like it's hopeless. Maybe you're the son who chose a broken road. Maybe you're the girl thinking you'll end up alone, praying, God, can you hear me? Oh God, are you listening? Am I more than flesh and bone? Am I really something beautiful? Yeah, I wanna believe that I'm not just some wandering soul that you don't see and you don't know. Yeah, I wanna believe. Jesus, help me believe that I am someone worth dying for. I know you've heard the truth that God has set you free, but you think you're the one that grace could never reach. So you just keep asking, oh, what everybody's asking. Am I more than flesh and bone? Am I really something beautiful? Yeah, I wanna believe that I'm not just someone drink soul that you don't see and you don't know. Yeah, I wanna believe. Jesus, help me believe that I am someone worth dying for. You're worth it. You can't earn it. Yeah, the cross has proven that you're sacred and blameless. Your life has purpose. You are more than flesh and bone. Can't you see you're something beautiful? Yeah, you gotta believe. You gotta believe. He wants you to see. He wants you to see that you're not just someone drink soul that can't be seen and can't be known. Yeah, you gotta believe. You gotta believe that you are someone worth dying for. You're someone worth dying for. Someone worth dying for.
Wow, what a beautiful song that is. I decided to let it play a little longer today because I'm just reminded of the flaws that we were born with. And that's the topic of today's discussion. So welcome everybody to Maverick Live, Becoming Aligned, courageously fulfilling the life and work you were uniquely made for. If you're watching live, drop a live in the comments. Pull the comments up. And if you're watching the replay, drop replay and let us know where you're listening from. Every Thursday, I've been going live to really talk about the 0.1% effect and to talk about the unique gifts that God has given you that separates you and makes you different than every other person on the planet. And I want to make sure that I don't overemphasize this because, you know, one of the beauties that we have is our similarities, that 99.9%. And that's where a lot of our unity comes. But our unity is also grown when we respect the differences of each person on this planet and the unique gifts and the unique differences and the unique purpose that each person brings to the planet. And that is my 0.1% effect. And most of the challenges that we have in life is because we're not aligned with who God uniquely created us to be. And those challenges come in from the way we were born. We were born flawed, and I'm going to talk extensively about that today. But also the conditioning and the expectations that other people put on us because of the way that they were created. So when you have two people that are 99.9% the same, but 0.1% different, but we don't recognize the differences in the other people, the other gifts, the purpose, what's different and unique and special about them, we tend to project on them what our gift is, what our expectations are, what our mode and energy and ways of moving through the world. And those projections is what creates conditioning, and conditioning that causes us to not feel seen or to operate in a way that's outside of the way that God uniquely created us to be. We're misaligned. And right now I'm on a series about identity, and the whole brand that I've built is based on Psalm 139, and identity is a big portion of Psalm 139. And David also wrote in another Psalm, Psalm 51, on how we are born. And because of the distortion of the world as a result of the fall, when we're born into the world, we're born into this distortion. And we receive this distorted framework as part of our birth. David actually writes in Psalm 51, verse 5, "Behold, I was brought forth in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me." So mom was in sin, but we're all actually born with sin as well. We are born with these imperfections. And sin means missing the mark. And I want to stress that. A lot of people hear the word sin and they reject it as if it is, and I want to be very cautious here, it's this wicked thing that makes you a bad person. And while sin is a distortion from perfection, it is a distortion from God's original intent. And that's what Born Flawed is all about. And I'm going to talk more about that today and throughout the next few minutes. I also wanted to talk more about, I touched on this last week with the heinous murder of Irina Zarutska down in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then shortly after that, just a week and a half after that, was that of Charlie Kirk. And I really want to emphasize the distortion in each of the people that created that conducted those wicked offenses. And it comes back to being misaligned. It comes back to distortion. And I just want to share with those that are listening, this has had a really major impact on me and on my ministry and what I'm hoping to bring to the world. And I'm really struggling with it right now because the distortion and misalignment, and I think the 0.1% effect framework that I've created will help address that. And again, that's based on God's design. It's based on the biblical teaching. I just put a name to it and put my unique gifts to it in order to deliver that message in a different way. But it is God's design from the very beginning that we are uniquely and wonderfully made. And most importantly, we're made in His image. And that 0.1% that makes me different from another human being, God is complete. So when we're made in His image, we pick up the traits of a kind and loving God, the creativity of a kind and loving God, the love, the compassion, the community, the desire to be seen or loved, I should say, and the capacity to love. But what He is not, He's not misaligned. That's when we're born into misalignment. And then we get further misaligned throughout our lives because we drift further and further away from him. And as we drift further and further away from him, we start hurting ourselves and we hurt others and we eventually go into darkness. And if that drift isn't identified, we drift completely into evil. And I want to stress that that is not, a human is not evil. A human picks up evil traits and starts getting used for evil purposes. So I wanted to touch on that, and I've really sat with what's happened over the last few weeks, and what my mission is in the ministry is to really see people for who they are, as fearfully and wonderfully made, image bearers of God, and to recognize the beauty that God has built in each one of them. But the ache itself manifests itself in a lot of different ways. One, it's no matter what we do, if we are not living per our design and the way he made us, we can feel exhaustion. We may start to feel aches in our conversations and our relationships, and relationships that feel hollow, even with the people that are closest to us. And sometimes we're in work, or we do work that doesn't fulfill us, work that doesn't fill our cup, so to speak. And those are all signs of that underlying ache. And it's not random. And the more that we live in that design, that distortion, the more that we feel it and the more misaligned that we get. And I had learned this the hard way. For most of you have heard my story many times, and I like to continue to share it for anybody new that listens or watches a video online, is that I worked myself right into a coma. I pushed through deployment after deployment. I did 15 deployments during the global war on terror. Then I stepped right out of that and went right into work in another military program where I was responsible for time, staying on schedule, on budget, on time to deliver a product for the Navy. And I did it in a very misaligned way. And that caught up to me. And that eventually put me in the hospital. But it also caused a ripple effect and a distortion with all of my relationships. And this is why I wanted to tie this back to what we've seen the last few weeks, is the more misaligned we get, the sicker that we get, the more unfulfilled we feel, but the more distortion and misalignment that we project on other people, and the more we hurt other people. And for me, it showed up in my health. I put myself in the hospital, my weight, my cardio fitness, all collapsed, and eventually my marriage and my relationship with my kids. But thankfully, as I started to work through these issues and recognizing how misaligned I was with God's original design, I was misaligned with him vertically, but I was misaligned in myself internally. When I started getting that aligned, my vertical alignment with God and my internal alignment, my relationships started to get better again. So it becomes a ripple effect. And again, I'm going to point back to what we're seeing in the world right now. The way people are projecting on others is a sign of misalignment, but it's distortion that they're projecting on others, and they're starting to cause more and more pain and distortion to other people. And it becomes a ripple effect. And that ultimately is how darkness continues to spread and eventually becomes outright evil, which is what we're seeing right now with some of these news articles. So that quiet ache that you're feeling deep inside now is the beginning of it. It's disconnection, it's exhaustion, it's restlessness. And it doesn't just drain you. And when left unchecked, it drags us into darkness. And darkness multiplied long enough corrodes our culture. And that's what we're seeing right now. And I want to also point out, and I want to start calling out evil where it's at. Every human being suffers from this. The distortion and the misalignment goes through darkness and evil, and we tend to see it more or manifest itself in different ways based on who that human being is and also what their genders are. We see this more often in men than women only because of the way men react to the distortion as differently the way women do. And I also feel really called to start working closer with men on this very issue, because a man that's misaligned, that slips into darkness, that's where you start to see that toxic masculinity. That's where we start to see men who are highly emotional spilling their emotional, their anger, their hate on other people. And ultimately, it's what's turning into these heinous crimes. The way men are treating women, all of it's a sign of misalignment. and again, I want to start, it starts at the very beginning of our life. We're not born blank slates. We don't learn these things over time. We get just more and more distorted over time. And as I shared earlier, Psalm 151, I've seen a few people come and go. So I'm going to read this psalm again for those that might be joining late. Psalm 51 says, "Surely I was sinful at birth, sinful from the time my mother conceived me." And again, sin means miss the mark. That means we're not perfect. We missed God's perfect mark, the perfection that he created us to be. That's what we're missing. And so if we are not living into our full potential, if we are not living fully in our gifts, if we are not loving to the best of our ability, if we're not loving or receiving love to the best of our ability, to our design, we're missing the mark. And the more misaligned we are, the worse that it gets over time until we start addressing that. So God's design's not flawless. It's the fall that bent it, and we inherit that distortion before our very first breath. And then our families, our schools, our churches, our workplaces, they all add layers and more dirt on that diamond. I spoke about that last week. More and more dirt goes on the diamond. And now that beautiful diamond is not showing itself. It's not illustrious. It's not showing its beauty that he created us to be. So distorted systems distort. And they don't define us, but they give us a false representation of who we were created to be. And over time, that ache deepens. So I'm curious, for those that watch, and this goes to the live audience and as well as those that are online, I'm really interested if you're feeling pressure to live by somebody else's definition. Drop a comment. Let us know, yes, you felt it. And what was that? What is most obvious in your life where you were trying to live somebody else's definition of you instead of the way that God defined you to be? But I do want to state that the things that we see as our flaws may not be flaws. They may, or the flaws of the distortion that are on top of us, or the dirt that's on the diamond, it doesn't erase who we are. And this distortion and misalignment doesn't define who we are. And our identity is not invented. I talked about this last week, and what prompted me to go on this identity 5 or 6 series of my Substack writing in my lives is about a person who wrote about how identity is always evolving and you get to define it as you grow. And that's just simply not true. Our identity comes from God from the very beginning. What changes over time is the distortion, either how much distortion in our identity that there is or how little there is. But ultimately, we should aspire to want to get as closely to perfection that God created us to be, but we can't do it under our own power. That's when we work with God, work with the Holy Spirit in order to cleanse us, in order to remove that dirt off the diamond so that we can get fully aligned with him. So as I mentioned, we share 99.9% of our DNA, and it's that 0.1% that makes you distinct. And that fraction carries your design and all that pressure of distortion, because that's where we're different than everybody else. So that's where we start to feel more and more of that trauma, intentional or unintentional. And it's also these distorted systems that press the hardest, where God made us or marked us most clear. So the shift isn't in trying to invent yourself. It's not trying to surrender to roles or reinventions that he didn't create us to be. But instead, it's to let God uncover the design that he's already placed in you. So I'm going to ask you, what would it look like if you could look in the mirror and see that perfect version of yourself, as David writes in Psalm 139, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. To look in the mirror and say, I am fearfully and wonderfully made, and to know exactly what that means, what my purpose is, what my gifts are. That gives me complete and full alignment in my life, in my faith, my family, my fitness, fellowship with others, and as well as my field, the work and purpose that I have in life. What would it look like if you were fully anchored in God and you had a healthy family where you could be fully present with them and not just be performing for them, or have amazing fitness of this body that he's blessed us with, that you're a good steward of the body in good health, and you maintain your fitness not as a form of punishment, but as a form of celebration for what he created, these temples for the Holy Spirit. What would it look like if you could deepen your relationships in fellowship, and you're doing it because of who you are and who they are, not for performance of what you're hoping to get from them or what you're hoping to receive from them. Just see them as image bearers of God. What would it look like if your field, your work, your purpose gained meaning beyond achievement, beyond just milestones and metrics, but it gave you such drive and purpose that you jump out of bed every single morning to go do this work because it so fills your cup and it so fills and supports other people. After my coma in 2017 and my wife leaving in 2018, I had to ask myself those things. I had to look at those 5 areas of my life and begin to rebuild. And it all started with my faith. My faith to know that I am fearfully and wonderfully made, to know that I was anchored in God. And it didn't matter what anybody said about me. And although it is painful when people project on me, and I'm sure if you're anything like me, it's painful for you that they project on you as being something. We're seeing a lot of that in the world right now. We're seeing words, fascist, racist, misogynist. We just see those words projecting over and over again. And those are distortions. It takes a toll on us. But what if we actually leaned into Psalm 139 and rejected all of that, and we look at a holy creator and said, I know who you created me to be, and start working towards that. And when I did, I began to rebuild. And it wasn't just striving. It wasn't performance. It's through alignment. Slowly, that ache started to shift into clarity. So picture what that would happen if everybody did that. An entire community lived this way. An entire community served in the way that only a single person in that community can serve. A gift that only one person in that community can bring. That's how uniquely and fearfully and wonderfully made that you are. And that ripple isn't just personal peace. It's cultural light. Alignment doesn't just pull you out of the ache. It pushes back darkness that misalignment multiplies. And when it pushes back darkness, it removes evil. It pushes it completely out of the way. So what's one area in your life you'd love to see shift through alignment? Drop it in the comments. And where I'll share that mine is where I still feel misaligned is the performance piece. I am such a high achiever and have been so highly successful in my life. I believe that I've done it subconsciously for value. As a young child, even now, I spend a lot of time alone. And when I'm alone, I tend to go into do mode instead of be mode. And it's almost like I'm doing to build something to show I'm significant. And that's the work that I have. That's the sin that I have, to continue to remind myself I'm significant because he says I'm significant, because he sent his son to die for me and on the cross. That's how significant I am. And that's how significant each and every one of you are as well. So that's the area that I'm working in the most, is what can I bring into this world in a way that fills my cup, that God fills my cup by giving me this purpose and not chasing it for my own selfish reasons. That's the paradox. So as you work through this, and this is what I've worked on again the last now 8 years, it's what transformation looks like. It's what has enabled me and encouraged me to retire early from a very high stress job and not have to worry about finances. So that way I can bring this message to the world. That way I can serve as many people as possible. And that's what transformation looks like. And it's not perfection. We're still missing the mark. I'm still missing the mark. And it's not performance, but it is alignment. And when I talk about alignment, I'm talking about dialing the knobs on that spectrum analyzer. I spoke about this last week and probably once or twice before. Constantly dialing those knobs to stay in complete and total alignment with the person that God uniquely created me to be. And that's why I built the 0.1% effect. It's to help you see where distortion presses and ultimately to uncover your GodPrint, to uncover God's fingerprint on you, your life, who he uniquely created you to be. And here's how you can do it. You can continue to tune in and join me Thursdays on lives or watch the replay. You can share this broadcast with someone who needs it. Or when you're ready, you can go in deeper. You can reach out. You can order a 0.1% effect discovery report. Or you can join me as part of my founder circle as I build a clarity engine to automate these tools in order to reveal to you those gifts that you have deep down inside that are probably covered in dirt and distorted as a result of misalignment. And I remind you that your identity matters and your 0.1% is not your flaw. It's your fingerprint. And it's the exact GodPrint that reveals who you were uniquely created to be. So that's the Maverick path: to uncover your design, to resist distortion, and walk in clarity that heals you, your family, and the world around you. And I'm going to close to thank you for joining me today. Thank you for watching the replay if you join late, or watch later this evening or another day. And to remind you that I'm live right now on Thursdays at 1 p.m. I'm not sure how long I'm going to do this because as I hinted at earlier, the events that have happened the last week is really beginning to draw me in a different direction. I will always have a presence on social, but I may be using it more for distribution going forward and less about engaging with other people, because I want to spend more time in my local community and more time face to face with other human beings where I feel I can be much more impactful. I tend to thrive better when I have an audience, in person preferable, or even engagement online during a live event. That fills my cup. So I'm looking for ways that I can do that more. And I'm feeling that I may be doing that more locally and doing that a lot less online. So if this speaks to you, I would love to hear from you and tell me what your thoughts are. What would you like to see more of? And I'm also going to encourage you, if you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook or LinkedIn, subscribe, follow me on any of those channels so you get alerts when I do go live. I'm also starting to feel led to have a lot more random 2-minute lives in the evenings because I know this is a hard time for people to join because I recognize that many of you are at work. So it's very difficult for you to go online, but it's also difficult for me to gauge what tweaks I need to make on this platform and my work in order to reach more people, but more importantly, to really have an impact on you, to serve you in a way that you need to be served. So I just don't have the energy to set up a production like this at night. This is set up permanently for me now. I just hit go live and everything's ready to go. I can do that during the day. At night, if I have an urge, I might just do a 2-minute via the phone. I want to remind everybody that Psalm 139 shares that that God created your inmost being. He knit you together in your mother's womb. And that David writes, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. So remember, you weren't born blank, but you were born flawed. But you were born a beautiful masterpiece, but there was flaws on that when you were born, and there was more and more dirt thrown on you your entire life. But that design is still there. That beauty is still there. That image bearer of God is still there. That beautiful gift that you are to the world, the beautiful purpose that he put in you, the beautiful skills that only you can bring to the world. And when you align with that design, your ache becomes clarity, and any darkness that is in your life will lose its grip. And that evil then gets pushed back by the light. And those two men that took the lives, one of Irina Zarutska and Charlie Kirk, they dealt with this. Their design, the image bearer of God that they are, was distorted and then buried. And they slipped into darkness and ultimately committed those evil acts. And it is my mission to reverse that with as many people as possible. So if this message resonated with you, please like, share, comment, and I will see you next Thursday. Have a great week.
You might be the wife waiting up at night. You might be the man struggling to provide, feeling like it's hopeless. Maybe you're the son who chose a broken road. Maybe you're the girl thinking you'll end up alone, praying, God, can you hear me? Oh God, are you listening? Am I more than flesh and bone? Am I really something beautiful? Yeah, I wanna believe that I'm not just some wandering soul that you don't see and you don't know. Yeah, I wanna believe. Jesus, help me believe that I am someone worth dying for. I know you've heard the truth that God has set you free, but you think you're the one that grace Yeah, the cross has proven that you're sacred and blameless. Your life has purpose. You are more than flesh and bone. Can't you see?